Good afternoon. Last seminar of the day. Some of you have been very attentive today. I hope you've enjoyed the seminars and the presentations. This one is also one of my favorite seminars to do. It's an art talk with three absolutely fabulous fine art photographers. And two of them are also gallery owners, so some interesting perspectives. I'm Linda Mariano. I'm the Managing Director of Marketing for Redwood Media Group and for Artexpo New York. And you've already experienced some of what we're going to talk about, the amazing creativity of artists. If you've already walked the show, seen some of the exhibits, just walking from the front, back here to sit in this chair, you've seen some wonderful examples of creativity. Just behind me, if you've had an opportunity to go through Photo Solo, this is a show that we began as part of Art Expo 3 years ago. And actually, Ria was one of the exhibitors as part of that first show, and we're so glad that she's back with us this year in Photo Solo. So what this seminar is really about is taking a dive with each one of these artists to find out a little bit more about their career, their inspiration, where they've been, and where they're going. Let me introduce them to you. On your left is Michael Joseph. Michael is a fine art photographer, award-winning fine art photographer with artwork in museum collections, private collections, corporate offices, boardrooms, all of that, all over the world. And his artwork is really about all over the world from a very unique perspective through the lens. Ria Sharma, in the middle, is from India, and she is also an award-winning fine art photographer. She does a lot of portrait work, but she also does some amazing landscapes, and my favorite part of what she does is really taking the photography on a deep dive so that you almost don't know what it is until you take a second look. And I love that part of her work. Yubal is also a gallery owner. His gallery, Art Collective, represents other fine art photographers. And I would say that Yubal's photography is one of that really examines situations from a cultural perspective. So a range here of fine art photographers. And so let me just back up for a second to what I shared with you, that 3 years ago, we started Photo Solo. And why did we do that? We did that because, and I'm looking out at the audience and I see exactly what I'm talking about, and that is we all hold a camera in our hands, and they're better and better every single day. And, 30, 40 years ago, somebody like Ansel Adams, climbing all over the mountains in California, taking amazing photographs, was a phenomena, and still is today in terms of what he captured and how he captured it. And some of the fine art photographers that are here, I can think of several, and I know that each one of these photographers have done exactly this. It may just look like an elephant walking across the plains. Not so easy. Not so easy to capture the elephant at exactly the right light moment, at exactly the right foliage moment. I know photographers that go to far reaches of the world and will stand in a stream because from that perspective is exactly the right perspective to capture the moment. They're hoping that an eagle will fly by. It's all it's all happenstance, but you also have to have that right light. Today, one of the things that we see is this definite trend in terms of all of our interest in photography. We carry that camera in our hand, but today we're able to do something more with the photography than Ansel could because of technology. So that's a little bit about photo solo and what we see as a trend in terms of the art world. Fine art photography is definitely back. It's definitely highly collectible. And there's some aspects of it that we'll talk about here with these three artists. So let's start at the beginning. Michael, how did you know that you wanted to be a photographer? When did that start?
Great question. For as early as I can really remember, I know that sounds a bit cliche, and you ask artists, it started from childhood, and with me, it legitimately did. It wasn't even a camera that got me interested in this magical box. For me, I remember a toy viewfinder. You used to hold it up and look at the light and go through cell slides. And that's a toddler, but that somehow indelibly left an impression in my brain. Shortly after that, young adolescence, that magicalness of that box again would appear as the instrument that my grandparents were using, and then a little bit later on after that, my dad and the Polaroid cameras of the day. That exemplified for me. My father was surely a magician. And woof, there's. I just wanted him to keep doing it until I passed out. So really, that's the beginning of it. And then the second thing in my life, I was a curious fellow, young child who, growing up in a family of four, I was indelibly the black sheep, and heard that marching of the beat going on in my head, and I was constantly wandering off, drifting away while Mom was tending to the others. I guess somehow parents just know which ones they got to keep an eye on, which ones they don't. But I would wander, and I was curious about all these different locations and places. And as I got into my early teen years, I grew up in Connecticut, and I guess not having a close enough eye kept on me, I kept disappearing from school and ending up on the train in New York City. And I would sort of smuggle my dad's camera into my bag, and off I went. So I knew very early on this was absolutely what I wanted to do. If you trace the history to high school or even junior high school years, I was one of 5 kids that were in the camera club, that was a whole other story. And then in high school, I was in the art classes and knew that's what I wanted to do. I got a little bit of a detour into the music business, but I would come back to it professionally. And I am truly blessed and thankful to have the career that I do. And that's really how I got started in photography. Put the two things together, traveling and photography.
So I just learned something. I didn't know that you started out as a renegade. Photographer.
Yes.
Clandestine, sneaking off to New York City.
Street photographer. We were talking about that. Somebody interviewed me the other day, and they kept using the word street photographer. And I said, I want to clearly mention that you throwing this term around and putting it together with fine art or amateur photographer, but I said it's not equated that way. I am a street photographer. I was a kid that was literally in the streets and wandering around and drifting around, making photographs from the street of architectural buildings and structures and bridges, but much like a painter or any other artist. There's street artists and street musicians, but the connotation of that is you're doing it in public in the street. So by all virtue, yeah, I'm a street photographer, or definitely a renegade, or in some social circles, a little bit of a rebel.
Okay, Ria, how about you? How did you discover your creativity and photography as your medium?
I will give the credit to my family because I was just 4. And I don't know how my parents recall that she can click good pictures. I don't know how, but my parents thought I can do that. And he gifted me a camera at that time when I was just 4. And I started clicking the pictures. And I belong to a country where parents want their child to be an engineer or a doctor. But my parents want me to be an artist because there is no artist in my whole family. And they encouraged me to be a photographer. And they told me you don't have to be passionate, but you have to be an educated photographer. So they educated me into this field, and that's how I started my photography. Yeah.
And you, Bal, how about you?
The funny thing is that it's a kind of a combination between what you said and what you said. Because I remember the viewfinder perfectly and the toy Polaroid 35 millimeter clicker camera. So for some reason, since I was a kid, I'd always had a fascination of looking through this magical little tunnel where you can view great things and record that. So as a kid, I always had that. And my mother has been, even though my family's Cuban, so we have a bunch of doctors, architects, lawyers, but I'm the first artist or creative of the family, and it was about capturing those moments and getting that inspiration from where we come from that pushed me to pursue photography. And as well as Michael just mentioned, traveling is a very important part, also one of the passions, and when you're able to combine both of them, it is truly, truly a great blessing.
But here's the question. How did you know when you wanted it to be a career? Was there something that happened, or there was an aha moment when it was like, oh, I not only can I do this, all of you already had that permission to do it, but when did you think, oh, this could be a career? You go.
So basically, like you mentioned before, when you have the ability to capture a certain moment in time, that's what photography feels for me, and convey and share a vision or a part from another world with the rest of the world. And it's about sharing, connecting, and supporting what we do as artists and as photographers. So I say, well, we can capture these beautiful moments that hold time in the labs. And you can actually share with people and be able to narrate the culture. For example, a lot of my photography is from Cuba, and there's a lot of people that have not been to Cuba, and show them the other side of, oh yeah, it's not only Havana, there's all these places. So to your point is how to capture these moments and share them, and at the same time, you can get commissioned or featured in special projects, or actually somebody's buying our work because they love it so much. It's at that point when the first time I sold my first photograph, which was of Cuba to a German lady, and it's a longer story which you can buy later. I can tell you, but I was like, wow, yeah, we can do this. We can actually do what we're passionate about, and hopefully it can be work.
So Ria, how about you? When did you realize that okay, this could be a career? This is more than just a hobby.
The time I was clicking the images because I started liking to do that, but later on when I got a proposal from a gallery from London, and I went there and I exhibited my work and people started liking it, And I thought, why not to make this thing as a career? And I sold there 4 pieces, so I realized, no, I want to make this thing as my career. That's where I felt.
Getting. And Michael, how about you?
For me, the idea of being a professional photographer came later as a second career, as you know. So, but I knew at that young age in grade school that I was going to be an artiste or in the art world. I knew that very early on. I didn't want to do anything else. I told you that story about being in school and taking the art classes because I was failing everything else miserably. And they made a special concession for me to be able to stay in school and graduate. They actually doubled and tripled my art classes. And I was that good enough with the art and the photography that I was brought in as a leader to help teach and educate other students. So there was something that was nurtured in me very early on. I don't like to use the word special or even sometimes the word that humbling, that, oh, he's an artist, I'm an artist. I don't feel comfortable throwing that around. I knew that, much like yourself here, that it's nurtured, it's someone that helps you along to tell you that it is okay, and it is not just a dream, but also with me very young, the art would come back. The photography come back later, and I'm glad that I had the chance to come back to it. It makes me the man that I am today because I had the fortunate ability to be in the music business, whereas I was working very hard around celebrity artists and watching them conduct themselves and behave, and I learned a great deal from that. And I also traveled a lot again, and I saw what I did want to do and not want to do if I ever had the chance. So coming back to making photography a career almost happened accidentally. For me, I was, but the idea that my dad also told me, gave me great advice, which was same. If this is what you would like to do, then you will do it as an educated individual. You will not be ignorant. You will not be selfish, and that meant a lot to me. So.
Well, and I think that all of us, I mean, one of the things that we talked about with the exhibitors, actually, before the show even opened, is the importance of education, educating yourself about the art industry, the art world, building relationships. It doesn't matter whether you're a fine art photographer or a marketing executive like myself or a teacher. Much of what we all do all day, every day, is about building relationships. And really, in the art industry, I believe that that's the core. And one of the things that I think about fine art photography that's so interesting and compelling is you're looking at a relationship. To Yubal's point, the photography is telling a story to the observer, and so the relationship begins right there. So you started to touch on this, but I want to take a little deeper dive because I always love the answer to this question. Ria, the first pieces that you sold, you remember it, you mentioned it, but why do you remember it?
Because this was my first time and I had no idea about it that I'll sell it in another country, and with that amount I'll receive from that photography, I had no idea. And that was my very first time, so I can't forget that. And that's what made me to come into this career and select this as my career field. So I can't forget that. And that's the best thing can happen to an artist. To make an art is just a start. To get it seen to others, to get sold to others is what makes sense. That's what I feel. So yeah, so I can't forget that.
Yubal, how about you? Do you remember the first piece that you sold? And yeah, why do you remember?
Because I was sharing the story. from a country with this person and share the changes, and then she automatically
The lady from Germany.
from Germany, Helga. I can't pronounce her last name. Sorry, it's like this. And taking into consideration that we're from this small island in the Caribbean, and she was from all this other side of the world, and started sharing the story, and I felt her energy and her eyes kind of ascend and light up. And when we finished the conversation, she told me, you know what? This feels like back home. This takes me to my childhood. This takes me to that memory. It doesn't matter if it's in another country, in another place. And that happiness that she had, and that reminder that she actually keeps in the entrance of her room. She lives in Rancho Santa Fe in California. And she told me, I got this because this is a reminder from when I wake up and when I go to bed, where I come from. So that's why I remembered that.
And Michael, how about you? The first piece that you sold, remember it?
Yeah, of course. As the saying goes, you always remember your first, good or bad, indifferent. But yeah, it's been many years, of course, and there's a lot of sales in between. But you always remember the first as much as you remember the last one you made, and you know, and you go forward. But a vague memory of really wasn't. Anything monumental, but the one takeaway that I remember from like maybe the first professional photograph or of an exhibit where something was purchased would have a wonderful effect on my life, because, and this is something I was speaking about this morning, was reciprocity and the continuing of doing good deeds, as my dad installed in me. Don't be ignorant, don't be selfish, and always help others as you help yourself. So the first photograph I sold, I remember was doing a street art exhibit. And I wasn't even in the street festival. I was about 4 blocks down and set up in front of someone's restaurant that I knew. He was a good friend, so I couldn't get in the festival because I couldn't afford, but he let me set some stuff out in the cafe, and I had sold something that day, and it was fabulous. 3-4 weeks later, I got a little box in the mail with a little note. I wasn't expecting anything. It was ultimately from the gentleman who purchased the photograph, and it was an amazing set of business cards printed on like plastic. Back then, that was 20 years ago. It was like an American Express card. He took my image, printed it on there, and in Boston silver letters, my name and my telephone number. I didn't have an email or a website back then, but he did that for me. He said that you know, he really saw something in my work, and he encouraged me that I would go on to have a wonderful career. He underpaid for the photograph, and this was his way of paying forward and paying more. And that little plastic business card had, I mean, the wow factor that I was able to catapult my confidence in my career forward from having something that nobody else had or at the time was so impressive. So yes, I definitely remember that connection to selling my first photograph, and it taught me a lot.
So here's another question that I love to ask. You know, when we think about the great artists, the great masters, an art historian or a curator might talk to you about Van Gogh and his blue period, or towards the end of his life and he was painting this and that, or Picasso had a period where he was really doing nothing but sculpture, and then that transitioned to really, you know, painting again. So the question is, has your art changed over time? Ria?
Yeah, of course. I keep on changing my art on like monthly. I keep on changing. I keep on adding another thing on that subject. I used to click portraits when I started photographing. Then I switched to landscape. Then I switched to making digital pictures, which is like editing and all those stuff. Then I started digital painting. So I keep on changing with the time. You can't be just with one thing, like just clicking one subject all the time. You have to be creative. As per the time, you need to be creative. And that's what I do. I keep on changing the topics, I keep on changing my subjects, I keep on adding on the subjects, and that's why I keep on broadening my photography, not narrowing it. Yeah.
Well, and I think particularly in photography, there is so much today, going back to Ansel Adams, that he just didn't have availability of. How about you, Yuval? Would you say that your work has changed over time?
Certainly, to her point, which is a great point, as individuals, creative individuals that capture moments, and our subjects are real people or real living things, or even when it's not living things, animated things through time. By the way, Michael's work is amazing. You should go by, check it out. Even structures change over time, people change over time, countries change over time, and as we document, especially in travels, or we might have a muse that changes over time, and we have photographed that person in different stages or situations of their life, that itself is the basic form of how our work is organically changing. Then there's how we look to be different mediums or different technology or different settings expand our work. So I truly believe that a photographer's work is naturally ever changing, but we do influence that change, and it's part of our creative nature to seek the next thing that is gonna draw out our emotions in our work. So yeah, definitely.
So, Michael, I don't think that 50 years from now they're going to be talking about your blue period, since his photography is black and white. But have you seen your photography change over time?
Conversely, no. I had a set bag of tricks. I keep resorting to magic, but I feel that it is. So or in my repertoire, in my photography, in my style that I really crafted and wanted to be known for, I only had maybe 3 or 4 things that I do. I knew that I shot cityscapes, black and white, in black and white. It was a fresh perspective that I wanted to bring. And the 4th component was that I did it on film. And it was completely manual settings on my camera. Everything was manual on that camera. And so what happened with time, 20 years now, over 20 years, the imagery has not changed. I photograph, I can go out and do it. If I don't do it for a year and you drop me into a city and said photograph, boom, it kicks in almost automatically and I can start making photographs, just like riding a bike. What really changed that was pivotal for me, film went away. And it's a very digital iPhoneography world. And I've been more hesitant to pick up my camera because I just don't feel as natural shooting with that digital camera as I did with my film camera. And I've slowed down incredibly. I don't have the spark. I think I feel that exhilaration of loading that camera, that smell, that tactile feel, that adrenaline. You don't even know what you have until you get back to the darkroom. All that was part of it. And unfortunately, as that went away, I'm sad about it. And you're right, Rubo. I get asked to go on assignments now. I have projects that companies, Fortune 500 companies, see the style of my work, and they ask me to come and shoot for them and shoot their building in my style, and it's great. But I don't know. They love the images. People are still loving my images, but there's something innately that I know that maybe is not quite the original, as you said, the Ansel Adams, that traditional way of making photography. But the subject style, it's still there. I didn't deviate like you mentioned, Ria. I don't shoot flowers or portraits or animals, and none of that. It's still black and white architectural photography.
And I think that that's I think that's interesting. You've got 3 photographers here. You've got more behind me over here in Photo Solo, and each one of them definitely, just like every artist, brings their perspective to the artistry, to how it's executed. So my next question is a little bit about that, and I know that each one of you are involved in different aspects of philanthropy, charity, and that kind of thing from an artist's involvement really goes back decades, centuries, because I think it's something that artists have always been very involved in the community. The community becomes, the culture becomes almost a part and parcel of what they do and how they do it. And in today's world, it even gets depicted in the art in some ways, sometimes. So are there things that you've done in your career that have made a difference in the community, a difference to you, a difference to your business? Yuval?
Coincidentally, the last sentence of our mission in Arte Collective is giving back through art. And one of the things that not only myself as a photographer or curator or gallerist, everybody that we collaborate with in the gallery and every artist that comes in, one of the first things between that process of getting to know each other is letting them know that at one point, part of what we do every year is give back through art. So we want that commitment from them. So having said that, one in particular, so we every year collaborate. There's the organization called the Maestro Cares Foundation. It is an organization that builds orphanages for children in Latin America. Their co-founders are great individuals that I've been lucky enough to know. One of them is Mr. Henry Cárdenas, which is a very well-known music supporter and promoter throughout the world, I would say, in the United States. And the other one is Mark Anthony, which I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with. So when they established this first mission, I was able to go to the Dominican Republic. They have one of their orphanages, Orfanato Niños de Cristo, which is La Romana. And we got invited there to do talks and panels, and we did a big donation of art supplies to the kids. And for me, that was a life-changing moment. Being blessed enough to spend time with these kids, ages from 2 to 17. Some of them, one of them specifically had been abandoned on their bridge or his parents, and giving them the tools by donating canvases and film and all of that, and giving the talks, and seeing them light up just because you're spending the time and sharing with them. That's it. That's what it's all about.
And that becomes inspirational.
My God, definitely. And there is this photograph of one of the kids, which is the kids that I just mentioned, that he's painting, and it's in my phone, I'll share it with you, and he's smiling. And Coco, which is the director of the, I don't promise I'll be done soon, the director of the orphanage, told me, Joel, he doesn't smile usually. He's sad because of the trauma that he's caused. So when we saw him painting and smiling, and every time I'm feeling down or every time I'm feeling like, something, we're human, we all go through things, I have that picture in my phone, and I look at him, and I'm like, it just brightens up my day.
And
So
he's inspiring you now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's great.
On a daily basis, yeah.
Ria, how about you?
Presently, I'm working with UNESCO in India. I'm working for the heritage places where I click and submit them, and we are making documentaries. So after that, when I joined UNESCO and working for them, I decided to do something else for community also. So I became a general secretary of my state, And then we started to work for the people who love photography. And we started doing workshops for the people, and we started giving free workshops to the people and making them learn photography and learn editing and learn how to exhibit. And I always recommend Artexpo to come over here. And in that way, we are giving so much to the community in my country. We are working for that, and it has been great help by UNESCO also and my foundation also, but we are working for it to spread art and for people to learn about art. Yeah.
That's great. Michael, how about you?
It's been a while. What was the question? No, I drifted. I was in Paris about 20 minutes ago. No, all kidding aside, absolutely. Giving back is one of the best parts of my life, and I enjoy it incredibly. Again, going back to my father's words of wisdom, because he gave me no money. He said, I'll give you a few words that you can build on and build a nice career. So I thank him for that. But yeah, being selfish is not part of it. Again, I used the word reciprocity in my early photography career all the way to today, all the way with my company at Art Blend. There's always giving back. There's always sharing with your community. So many charitable events, so many fundraising events, so much of my own photography that was given away or donated to help raise funds or awareness for great causes. Too numerous to even mention one, because I'll forget somebody else and I'd be remiss. So another great mentor of mine imparted some wisdom on me early on, that the real great photographers don't take photographs, they make photographs. And if you can do that, you can make a life, you can make a wonderful career, and make a lot of other people's lives wonderful as well. So that was something I always remembered.
Well, and I think that when you're involved in giving back and philanthropy, it's a feel-good kind of thing. But it's also a little bit like dropping a pebble in a pool of water and watching the ripples come out, because it comes back to you. You don't know when you're working with UNESCO how far that work is going to go, how far that piece is going to go, the piece that you donated for a fundraising, who gets that, what happens to it next, and they hear about you. It's a way to truly broaden your reach by working with these different organizations. So I have one final question, and Michael, I'm going to start with you. So we've kind of heard about how you started your career. Now, tell me, what are your career strategies for today and your goals for the future? What do you want to do now?
Today?
Well, today we're at Artexpo. I know what you want to do today. You want to have a successful show here. But
Right.
Speaking as Michael Joseph, the fine art photographer, what are your career strategies?
Well, the career strategy, all kidding aside, right? I mean, I've always made very short-term attainable goals, mid-term, and then longer term. So that could be equated to 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. But I'm giving a rejuvenation to my own career. I'm actually 25-year anniversary or something like that coming up in Miami. I'm in the process of putting together another book, a longer retrospective book with some additional chapters of some locations that I'll be visiting and have been visiting for the past 6 months, and we'll be releasing that. That's part of the new chapter in my life, if you will, called American Modern. A big look at all, as Linda mentioned, and I had said, my architectural photography, I've been blessed to travel through all 48 contiguous states. I photographed almost every major metropolitan building, skyscraper, iconic bridge, and such. Traveled abroad, so that's part of what the American Modern journey is about now. So we're going to put that together. We look to do further exhibitions, involve some more corporations and some events. get back out there and relinquish some of the duties in my company with Art Blend, let the younger generation delegate those responsibilities and have more control so I can get back out and travel and make photographs again and become more versed and comfortable with that digital camera and continue to make great photos and sell artwork.
Yubal, how about you? What's your career strategy going forward?
Travel more. Because to travel,
travels all the time.
No. That's, seriously, for example, the picture that you see to your left, I'm guessing, that was taken in Cuba. That is the neighborhood my mother was born in, and every time, and in that street you have like 7 relatives of the family. So I want to continue to tell the Cuba Siempre story. There's that new series that I'm going to continue. I got to go back to Cuba to continue that. The second, it's not my work per se, but it's a photography project that going to curate and develop, which is the photography that a friend of mine, Joshua Eagle Patron, took of his travels with his late wife that recently died of cancer. And one of the first things that they did out in those couple of last year was document their travels and their life. And we want to curate a show not only in honor of her memory, but to bring awareness of how that disease affects certain lives and how you can live with it. So that's a passion project they definitely want to do. And then career-wise, definitely keep growing, keep learning more, and keep selling, definitely. That will be nice. And then just keep sharing the work and making good art. Yeah.
And Ria, how about you?
Presently, I am an ambassador for my country, for arts and culture. So, and even the influencer for the country. So I keep on influencing people how to be an artist, because as I said, I come from a country where parents want their children to be an engineer and doctor, not an artist. So I'm influencing people to be an artist, and you can be an artist and you can be a successful artist like me. And I am working with, as I said, I'm working with UNESCO and all, and I keep on working with them for the community. But I'm working as an influencer right now and as an ambassador to promote arts and to promote the people over there to come and show their art to different countries. That's it.
So now I invite you to come and see their art. Yubal, what booth are you in?
345.
Ria,
F430.
she's right here behind us. And Michael.
315.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Wonderful talking to you. I always love these. I hope you enjoyed and really got to know 3 wonderful fine art photographers. Enjoy the rest of the evening.